to look at myself and challenge myself about myself daily is like a part of what I view as progress. However, I was socialized here to also think progress is I get to drive, a BMW. Progress is the fact that the BMW can drive itself. You know what I'm saying? Like we have, it has come to, for me, simultaneously be outside of myself. And I think that a lot of what all humankind is doing seems to be headed towards things outside of the self. It feels like it's happening more now than ever. This is a concept that me and my wife talk about, right? Well, folks out there are crazy, or this is different, right? But I also see the trail of that being something that was the same in the 20s for progress, that progress was outside of their selves, or there was this insistence that it be outside of their selves. So where does true progress lie? I guess in your idea or in your own personal life, where would you situate progress? And what are the hurdles we have to look out for on our road to where you would situate progress?
I find myself in a degree of a struggle. And I say it because we're on a trajectory that isn't something that I began. And so to continue to progress on that trajectory is to suggest I'm progressing someone else's desires. I'm pushing forward someone else's desires. And so I think I kind of want to pull away from that. And that is the opposite of progress. And in so doing, it's resetting a trajectory.
Okay.
Right? I want to reset the trajectory. And I think it begins in a lot of ways, like what you said. You said, I want to be able to be thinking outside of myself. But outside of yourself, it means what? I think it means how do we find a technology in our collective consciousness? How do we find a technology in our unity, right? How do we find evolution in our unity? This is what they were trying to do in the 80s when everyone was rocking the African patches, right?
Yeah.
This is what they were trying to do in the 70s. This is what they were trying to do in the 60s. This was trying to do in the 40s, trying to do in the 20s. They're going, yo, we got to get together. And every time they tried to get together, they would get divided. Every time they get divided, they find other reasons for division. And so when I imagine progress, it feels a little bit like this. It feels a little bit like we're on the same wavelength, right? Yeah, we're on the same wavelength. When we walk out this room, we're on the same wavelength, right? And we're sort of pooling together the minds existing on that same frequency in order to figure out what evolution looks like for that trajectory of those people. Right now in America, as I said, that when I talk about a scarcity mindset, it's not just hoarding, it's also dividing everything up. There's a reason that whole group of people got together in Europe and divided up Africa the way they did, is partially to draw lines between the nations so they couldn't actually gather up, and then they divided the country so they can extract the minerals specific to their needs. That division stands here, right? I still feel brotherly connection to every brother I interact with. Every single one, I feel it. I look at me now. When I walked into the airport today, I had this guy shine my shoes. It was my man. Love this dude. I mean, this dude right there felt like my uncle, right? Felt like family to me.
Yeah.
And there is a connective tissue that I don't think we've had the opportunity to properly, a muscle we've gotten to exercise enough and push forward and figure out what do we want the trajectory of that to be, and it's to be inclusive of all black women, all black men in this country, specific to the American experience, and go, where do we want to be? Us. Not where do we want to be in the context of this white contrast. Where do we want to be? Us.
So me and you were talking about this when I picked you up, and I was like, you said somebody was talking about safety, right? We're talking about where we are and we're talking about safety. And I was like, yeah, but there's a feeling that we kind of move with that I think that people don't understand. Like I think it is presumed that we are saying that I am just as hard as these folks are here. They didn't stop making weapons when they made yours, right? But that's not what I think we're alluding to. What we're alluding to is that I intuitively have these same feelings and have had these same feelings as the folk you claim I won't be safe among.
Yes.
And because I know that intuitively,
Yes.
I am safe. And I understand that you don't understand this because you don't have access to it.
That's it.
Right?
That's
But
it.
what we were
That's what I'm talking
before
about.
when I
That's
picked you
it.
up, right?
That's it.
But okay. All right.
That
And if
intuition
that-
is ours. That's our heritage, I think. And that's the epicenter, I think, of our spiritual power as well, is this ability to intuit. Then it's where
Do other folks have access to that?
I think
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so do white folks have access to that? Do Asian folks have access to that? Or do they have their own versions of it? You know what I mean? Or is it both? It can be. I feel like it has to be.
I think it can be both, but I think there is a uniqueness to our culture and our experiences that is, if you think of it like quite literally like stations on a radio dial, like everybody's got a station, but there are some stations that you tune into and you're like, yep, that's me right there. You know it and you feel it. I brought like this is so funny to me.
Because I would imagine they have those same conversations. You know what I'm saying? To a certain degree.
To a certain degree. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then there's also, because I would say, right, if I was asking myself this, at some point you might have to draw a line when you're talking about the origins of the frequency.
Yeah.
Right? That would maybe make different frequencies, I guess, more powerful because they come from, you know what I mean? They are closer. So if everything is about abundance, right? Even this universe, like, so even the idea of, for some folks, the birth of this universe is this explosion into abundance. I would wager, or I have been socialized to believe, that everything that is closer to that source energy is better than everything that's farther. Like, in its ability to access said frequency.
Purer is the word.
You get what I'm getting at, right?
It's like without any other.
And not that this is, because I think there's an assertion. So while we were talking, I was thinking about Nietzsche's will to power, right? And before he builds up to the will to power, or in the book, that the one part of the history that is Nietzsche, right? But in this particular book, I can't remember the exact one. He's saying that one of the things that humans generally do is decide on an ideology, and then through their will, decide on a way to get that to as many folks as possible, right? So I don't think the frequency, or my suggestion is not that the frequency has an agenda like that. My assertion is that the frequency just is, and that certain folks might have more access to it in that essence of purity. So that it doesn't have you know what I'm saying? I think we have been trained to think that this energy has an agenda.
Can't. That's not how nature works. And so if that energy is a part of the natural world, you're living the life that you live, and your desire to become the best version of yourself in any other form in your life get you closer to that, to that level. And you think of it right now. We think of it in terms of our finance. You work hard, you make enough money, you'll be rich. You think of it in your relationship with God. If you pray every day, you be closer to God. You'll be spiritual. The frequency, I think it's the same way. Is like, how are you grounding yourself in a sense of truth relative to your history, relative to who you are, and relative to your connection to other people. There's a reason that Black people, in particular, uniquely, when you're having a conversation, I've had people say to me, like, why you say that? They'll be talking to me, I'll be like, yeah, I feel you. And they'll go, why are you saying you feel me? What does that mean? And I'm like, I don't know, but that's what we say. I feel you. I feel what you're saying to me. Yeah. I hear you, but I feel you.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. And I'm gonna give you an example.